Hi friend, David here from Learn Stage Lighting, and today we're going to help you create the best events you possibly can with lighting by talking about fog. A lot of times, I think fog is one of the most overused and generic words when it comes to atmosphere in stage lighting. Okay, because think about it. Like, you talk to somebody off the street, and you've probably done this before, right? And you think about haze, which is that thin particle that hangs in the air and gives you really great beams out of your lights, but you can see through it, right? Haze is at like every concert. Okay, many concerts, anything major for sure, a lot of smaller concerts as well, and other types of events, right? That's haze, right? And the average person off the street goes, "Oh, hey, the fog. Why are they using the fog?" Or "They're using the fog," or whatever. And you might just cringe, or maybe if you're new here, you might call it fog, and that's okay. We're here to help you. So when it comes to atmosphere in stage lighting, for sure, if you're brand new to this stuff, hop over to my first video of this series, which explains the difference between haze and fog and phase and all these other terms, some of them just marketing ploys in my opinion. But today we want to talk about fog. And by definition, fog is basically a cloud. It's more of, it can range from effects that look like fog, like what you see, in the outdoors when it's foggy, all the way to smoke-like effects. Okay, so the most generic type of fogger we have, there's a few types here, and I'm going to walk through three right here, is just a generic fogger. Okay, this is an inexpensive fogger from Froggies, but tons of other people make them. And if you're looking for a fogger, we'll help you at Learn Stage Lighting Gear, and we'll help you find the right machine for your needs. But just a simple machine here, and they heat up a water-based fluid, and they shoot out a cloud of fog like you can probably see in this clip right next to me. Okay, and the properties of a typical, like, just generic regular fog machine is they can be fairly loud. There are quiet versions out there. They take a few minutes to heat up once you start them, and they put out this plume of smoky, white, opaque, you can't see through it, atmosphere, okay? And it hangs out for a minute. It typically starts rising and then starts to dissipate. How fast it rises, how thick of a cloud it is, and how quickly it dissipates is really a function of the air temperature and humidity and the type of machine and fluid you're using. In fact, if you go down the rabbit hole, while many manufacturers make their own fluids and they kind of have like one type of fluid, Froggies, which is a big fluid maker, makes fluids for pretty much any machine on the market, and they have different concoctions depending on the effect you're trying to get. Okay, so that can be helpful. But a typical generic fogger, cloud of fog, that smoke type effect, makes a cloud on stage. If you do too much of it, you may have a problem in a minute when it's still all hanging there and starts drifting around, right? And there are different formulations, again, depending on the effect you're trying to get, that can help with that. Okay, next type of fogger, I think this is the next most popular, is the jet fogger. Okay, so this is a Froggies Hyperion jet fogger. It's upwards right now. These typically sit on the ground, face upwards, and they shoot this awesome plume of fog. Okay, typically with a unit like this, they can shoot up, they can be set to shoot down. A lot of times, not every machine, the Froggies Hyperion series can. They can shoot sideways, and they basically look like those CO2 type effects. So these used to be really popular, and they still get used in big concerts. But the problem with using CO2 is that you have to watch your balance of CO2 to air in the space. You have to be certified. You have to get the CO2 on site. There's some loopholes to jump through. Whereas foggers like this, they shoot a jet out. These Froggies ones actually have LEDs around the nozzle. And they also have LED color mixing in front of the plume of smoke. And that allows you to do some cool two-color stuff to your fog that's coming out. Okay, so those are Upshot or jet type foggers. Lots of different brands, lots of different models. They all have different heights that they shoot. That's going to be their maximum height, including the granddaddy, the Froggy's Fog SJ8, which goes 30 feet, I think, maybe 40. Pretty nuts. But, you know, the smaller ones that are made for gigging bands and stuff, you know, we're talking, I think, under $500 typically at the time of this recording. And, you know, you'll get a 10, 15 foot plume of fog, okay? Things to watch out for with these is a lot of the units are not variable. So you just get the full plume or nothing. You can't kind of fade it up or get, you know, just a small jet. If that matters to you, you definitely want to look at the Froggy's brand of units. They're often not just as the same price as the other brands. They're just a little bit lesser known, but they definitely have more under the hood. Okay, fogger type 3, the low fogger. So this is about the most inexpensive, good low fogger you can get. So low fog is made by taking a machine like this and chilling the fog. Okay, making it cold. When it's cold, it lies low and hangs out over everything. All right, and so you can DIY this, where people will take like a piece of ductwork, okay, run it through like a plastic bin, seal everything up really good, put some foam in there, dump a bunch of ice in there, and you'll generally get the same effect. This is the 80J Mr. Cool 2. We like these because the effect it makes, 2, they're really inexpensive. Though they don't have DMX control, you got to hop up to a little bit of a nicer unit for that. But, you know, they give you control. They give you all in one piece. You open this up, you unscrew this, you put the ice in, you let it hang out for a few minutes, you run the fog runs through it. It makes a really decent low fog for, you know, smaller spaces. And they're really inexpensive, okay? But low foggers can be all types. Just like the jet foggers, the biggest ones use CO2, but there's also units that use dry ice, or units, some, that don't use CO2 or dry ice, which is super cool. They're called ultrasonic. They do something fancy that makes the fog go low and hang out really great. The things to watch out for with a low fogger are, if you get these less expensive ones that use the regular fog fluid and then use dry ice or regular ice to chill them, that fog will rise. And so you do have to be aware of that, that you're ventilating that out of the space, because it can, if you use a lot of it and the conditions are just right, it can actually make a super ugly cloud of fog. But you know, if you test well, they can be a great effect for Halloween stuff, wedding grand entrances, stuff like that, and just work awesome. Okay, even just these little 80J Mr. Cool 2s. Really inexpensive, really good. So when it comes to getting the most out of your fog, the first thing to do is make sure you have the right machine for your needs. Are you looking for a plume of smoke? Boom, get a fogger. Do you want something low? Get a fogger designed for low fog. Are you looking for a jet of fog like CO2 that shoots straight up and then generally disappears within a few seconds? Getting the right fluid and machine together is your key, and you would want an Upshot fogger in that case. Fog, to get the most out of it, you generally, just like haze, if you're using like a regular fog, want to shoot it in a direction that it gets pulled by HVAC systems towards a return. That helps it to move better. That helps it to not just come out of the machine and get sucked back behind it. Say you put this in front of a return vent. Like sometimes theaters have a return vent on stage. If you put this in front of there, sometimes if the AC's kick in full gear or the heat, you might turn that on, the fog might come out and come right back. You don't want to do that. Fans can help move fog along, but you will see the effect of it, so do keep that in mind. And always, with any fog or haze type thing, you really do want to test. Now, most fog machines that are going to use any type of fluid, they are going to set off fire alarms. So have a plan in place with your facility, with your alarm company, and your local fire department. It sounds complicated, but it's really not once you get everything set up the first time. In most venues, you're able to put the system in test mode, silence the alarm, have a fire watch, and that generally is acceptable. And if that's not, there's generally some other way to make it happen. Okay. Last but not least, I do want to talk quickly about control of fog machines. So fog machines are going to have a couple different ways you can control them. The first is DMX control. We like that here, right? Things like this Upshot fogger, nicer regular foggers, nicer low foggers, they're all going to have DMX control. Typically, you're going to get a fog output control. You might have a fan. If something has lights, like this guy does, of course, this Upshot fogger, then you'll be able to control those lights, and that's pretty much it. Okay? If you are using them manually, which can have its advantages, sometimes in a community theater show, it's just simpler and easier to get an inexpensive fogger, have the stage manager or someone run it. Okay? If you're doing a haunted house, maybe you just want it on a timer. Okay, so there's a few ways that this generally happens. The simplest control that some machines have are just a simple remote here like this one, on-off switch, lights up when you can shoot the fog. Okay, most fog machines have a warm-up time that's typically stated in the manual. It's going to vary. Sometimes it's like 10 minutes, sometimes it's not. Okay. Any decent fog machine, though, that's not super inexpensive is going to have a remote like this one. All the brands pretty much look the same. What you get here is you get 3 buttons. Okay, kind of like a traffic light. Manual just runs the machine. Okay, sets it to run typically at the percentage of intensity that you have. On this one, there's a duration. Okay, and that's typically the amount of output, okay? And so you hold that manual and it's going to go. Now, there's also continuous. So continuous will fire out continuously. It'll just ignore the interval or time knob. And then timer is a clicky button, a latching button. That's gonna click in. And when it is clicked in, it's gonna obey the interval. So that's how often the fog runs. This one is 1 to 30 seconds. So let's say we put that up to 30 and we put a duration at 15 on the duration knob. That means every 30 seconds it's going to start fog and it's going to run that fog for 15 seconds. Therefore, it will have 15 seconds off and then it will start again, or it's going to run 50% of the time. Using the interval and duration and dialing that in is essential when you've got something that's running for a long time. So a fog burst that's in the middle of a show, you might just hit the button a couple times, be done for the show, right? For a grand entrance, something like that. But when you've got an effect like a haunted house thing, or some other effect where it's running for a longer period of time, even with the band, maybe you run a low fog for a whole song, okay? Dialing in an interval and duration that works for what you're doing is going to be your best bet. What you want to try to do when you have a long-running fog effect is find those settings, and you can do it with interval and duration, but if you have DMX control, you can do it in your console. But you just want to find that combination where you're not really seeing like plumes coming out of the machine, okay? That you're putting enough out and doing it often enough with breaks in between that you're not building up a ton of extra fog more than you want, but you're also not getting too thin in between output times, right? So a lot of times, you're not going to do typically a really short, like 5-second interval and 2-second duration, because that's often just going to be like stop and go, stop and go. But often, because fog hangs around for a while, running a 30, maybe a 10-second duration on a 30-second interval might look really nice. You might start the effect off with a continuous, get it going, and then you just use the timer to continue that. Okay, like any sort of atmosphere, fog and haze settings and kind of on and off periods and things like that are really going to be dependent on the look you want, the space you have, the airflow, the temperature. Experimentation and the ability to adjust on the fly is going to be your best bet. Now, I hope you got an education today from this video on fog machines. If you watch this and you say, hey, I need an upshot fogger, a low fogger, a regular fogger, anything else, we're here for you. Over at Learn Stage Lighting Gear, we are your atmosphere experts. We're your fog experts. We know this stuff because we've used it. We pay attention to what's going on. We pay attention to all the brands, not just one. That's why we have multiple here. And we help you to find the best fit for your needs. If that sounds good, hop over to LearnStageLightingGear.com, ask us for a quote today, and be assured that a lot of times, honestly, people write in, they saw something on our channel, they go, I want that, like this, the Hyperion D6 from Froggies. Really nice unit. We might look at what you have and say, hey, something less expensive is right for you. And it's our goal here to always make the right recommendation. It's what we do in Learn Stage Lighting Gear, even though oftentimes that means that the money we make on the sale is less because we're in it for the long term. We want to be your source for gear. If that sounds good to you and you're in the US, hop over to LearnStageLightingGear.com. If you have any questions about fog machines, not sure what to get, hey, that's great. Use our contact form, use our quote request, let us know. We're here, we're friendly, we're responsive, we want to help you. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and we'll see you guys in our next video. Thanks.